This video is about the dark truth behind the 2028 Democratic primary for the presidential nomination. And I'm going to explain to you who is going to decide who becomes the nominee and why that person, whoever is picked, is not going to win. This is a video the Democratic Party, the leadership, not the activists, but the leadership doesn't want you to know this video. If anything, the activists actually will be excited about this video. So if you are like a hardcore Democratic voter, you're probably going to love what I'm about to explain. If you are in leadership in the swamp over in Washington, D.C., you know this. You know this. If you're in Democratic leadership in D.C., you know what I'm about to say, and you don't want it told. All right, so let's talk about the Democratic primary first. We've reached a point within our political spectrum. I don't think it's going to stay this way forever, but we have one minority group, which is Black people, and they vote in a unified way for the Democratic Party, and they tend to show up to vote. They tend to be pretty good voters, and honestly, I don't like that the Black community generally votes Democrat, but they usually pick amongst all the flawed Democrats. They do usually pick the best leader among them. They usually do. This is what the Democratic leadership doesn't want you to know. The first 5, 6, 7 primary states, the voter base is basically made of 50% Black voters, if not more. So basically, Black voters decide who's going to be the Democrat nominee. No one talks about this in the news media. No one talks about this in political circles. I'm going to say this as a minority with multi-ethnic heritage. They don't talk about this because they don't want Black people or minorities to know how powerful they are. That's why they don't talk about this. They do not want Black people in the churches on Sunday, talking about who they're going to vote for. They don't want them to realize the power that they have. But literally, Black voters decide the Democratic nominee. And the proof of that is the emergence of Barack Obama in 2008. Kamala Harris was supposed to be, the heir apparent. That's my personal speculation. Her campaign in 2020 crashed and burned. Black voters, pumped up a lot by the endorsement of James Clyburn over in South Carolina, my understanding is they saw Joe Biden and said, this guy was behind our guy, Barack Obama. This guy was a good foot soldier. He protected Obama. Honestly, Joe Biden took a lot of flack for a lot of mistakes Barack Obama made. And that's to his good credit. I think he was an awful president. I kind of think he's a terrible person. But Black voters awarded him because they said, look, he protected our guy. He made our guy look good. That's what a VP is supposed to do. So they delivered him the nomination. So what I would challenge you to do if you're into politics, you need to look at the list of the 2028 Democratic candidates who are probably going to run, and you need to ask yourself which of them appeals to Black voters. Black voters tend to vote together. They tend to coalesce around one thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that shows a very flexible power. I don't think that'll be forever. I think this is a temporary element within the Black community because a lot of them are starting to vote Republican, which I think is wonderful. But for now, for the next, I would say 10 to 15 years, maybe 20, Black voters will exclusively decide the Democratic candidate. Now, who amongst that list appeals to Black voters? Maybe Kamala Harris by virtue of shared ethnicity, but Black voters, Bill Clinton said this, and I agree with him. They have this special radar for detecting what he said is bull excrement. They tend to favor the guy who can give the best explanations. So whoever has that grandiose vision, if they can defend it, that's the guy they tend to like. And Kamala can't do that. She's not going to win the Black vote. If she could win the Black vote, she would have been the outright nominee in 2020. So when I look at the list of Democratic candidates, I don't know who's going to win that vote. I know it's not going to be Gavin Newsom. I know he's the guy getting a lot of attention. It's not going to be him. Pritzker is bringing a lot of money. Rahm Emanuel is bringing credibility. I mean, I don't see any of them doing that. I can see Wes Moore doing it. Wes Moore is a compulsive liar. And I know black voters won't like that. By virtue of skin color, maybe they vote for him. Maybe. I don't see them voting for AOC, so I don't know who's going to win the primary yet. All I'm telling you is whoever the black voters pick, that is who the Democrat candidate's going to be. No one wants to talk about this, but that is what it's going to be. They are basically 50% of the primary electorate, if not more, and they tend to coalesce. This gets me to my second dark truth, and this is why whoever wins that primary is not going to win the presidency. I like J.D. Vance. I'm not going to quite say that I'm committed to voting for him, but generally what I'm seeing, I'm worried about the Palantir connection. I never vote. I've basically hardly ever vote for Democrats. I think Democrat activists are very well-intended people. The problem is Democrat leadership always sells out. They always sell out to the highest bidder or whoever can blackmail the best. So I just don't trust their leadership. I don't vote Democrat. But this is the reason whoever wins that nomination is not going to win. The Democrats have put themselves in a really rough position in terms of demographics and marketing. They basically have three audiences who need to show up in order for them to win. Now, if these three audiences show up, it is very difficult to beat the Democrats. In states, this pertains to their gubernatorial candidates, their Senate candidates. If these three constituencies show up, you're not going to beat that Democrat. But if you can crack any of the three, you can beat the Democrat with ease. Constituency one is black voters. The margins are so thin on elections, and Democrats depend not just on black voters, they depend on a 90% like black turnout, like an insane turnout. So this has to be a candidate that black people don't just vote for. They are motivated. They are like, this is our guy. We're going to show up. The second one is labor union voters. Labor union is where Kamala Harris failed. She also, I would say, failed with black voters. The black voters weren't as enthused in comparison to before. The labor union guys definitely weren't enthused. So you've got to get black voters there. You've got to get the labor union guys. The third leg on this chair is really white liberal women, educated, college degree, white liberal women, the quote unquote Karens. I just don't see any of the candidates on the current 2028 rumored list for the Democrats. I don't see any of them appealing to black voters. I don't see any of them appealing to the labor union cause. The one guy who can swing this is Wes Moore. He's obviously very comfortable talking to black people. He's black himself. I think he can use his identity to appeal to them. I think he's got the charisma to reassure labor union voters. He is a compulsive liar. He is an absolute compulsive liar. But it's the Democratic Party. Hey, he's their best option. That's probably how it's going to shake out. Here's where the rubber really hits the pavement, though. The white liberal women, they tend to be the most reliable constituency to show up for the Democratic Party. I got to give the white Karens here credit. I really shouldn't call them that. They're being very critical of war right now. What's happening between Israel and Palestine, the overtures of going to war with Iran, they are starting to lose faith in Democratic leadership. Matt Gaetz said this, who's a friend of mine and who I really is a hero of mine. Just the topic of Israel, Palestine, and those white liberal activists, they are going to pressure these candidates and say, take a side. Are you for wars and foreign aid, or are you for keeping money here and settling things diplomatically? I don't know if Wes Moore can make that promise, and frankly, I don't know if any Democrat candidate can make that promise, maybe AOC. Right now, I think AOC wins the nomination, and I think J.D. Vance smokes her in the election. And if it's not AOC, Wes Moore is the second best. Those are the only two to watch as far as I'm concerned. J.D. Vance needs to be worried about winning the Senate and the House, though. Merry Christmas, everyone.